call upon Professor Hari K. Nagarajan. Professor Nagarajan is the Infosys Chair for Societal Development at IIMA and is a driving force behind the Financial Inclusion for Rural Transformation program of research. I invite him to the dais to introduce the program of work and share his thoughts on financial inclusion for rural transformation as an exercise in institutional collaboration.
Okay, thank you very much, Errol, and it's always a pleasure to listen to you and have you here. This program of work was something that was thought about a few years back, and one of the things that we discussed, I and a couple of my colleagues discussed, was that financial inclusion is typically thought of as a scheme or as a policy, and it is always from the supply side. And we really do not understand, or we really do not know the dynamics that financial inclusion create within the households, within the recipient households, so to speak. And we also felt that in all of the discussions on financial inclusion, the individuals and the households went missing. It was all about coverage, it was all about access, it was all about any number of other issues except the individuals and households who are using these financial products and the banking services. So it was not really clear when the discussion switched to success or failure of financial inclusion. It was not really clear what they were measuring, whether they were measuring the failed ability of individuals or households to use financial inclusion, or they were measuring something else. Another issue that sort of bothered us was to address financial inclusion in the context of rural transformation. Not necessarily rural development, because that has been kind of talked about ad nauseum, but rather rural transformation. So if you talk rural transformation, you necessarily have to talk about individuals and households, and individual and household decision making, allocative efficiency of individuals and households. So if households are able to make rational decisions about any number of things, ranging from nutrition, choice of public goods, expenditure, crop choice, technology use, all of these, if choices are actually made, not expenditure decisions, choices are actually made, and there is a significant difference between expenditure decisions and choices being made. Because when households and individuals start making choices, they're maximizing their welfare. When they're incurring expenditures, not necessarily. So we kind of want to understand whether financial inclusion triggered choices. And it was this ability to make choices consistently that could trigger rural transformation. So that was a starting point. This was about 3-4 years ago, and that's what triggered this thinking. And we approached different funding agencies, and I'm positively delighted. One of the points that we hold on to is that individuals and households should be incentivized to take decisions, and policy making and design of fintech products must be such that the individuals and households must be incentivized to take optimal decisions that will trigger maximization of welfare, that will lead to maximization of welfare rather. However, that's not happening, both on the side of the policymakers and on the side of the fintech entrepreneurs. It is about implementation of a scheme or implementation of a program, how many bank accounts are opened, and or how many of these fintech products were sold. It is about that, and we really forget what is happening at the end of the day to the individuals and households. So we kind of want to bring attention to this, and what all of that triggers, what the current state of policy making and implementation and as well as product design triggers, is obsolescence. A very high rate of obsolescence of products and policies, which leads to increasing transactions costs for the households and individuals. And in order to if policymakers and fintech entrepreneurs recognize that, they will develop more products or devise newer policies. At the end of the day, they will magnify the existing transactions cost, the existing model hazard, existing levels of adverse selection. So we are approaching this problem from that world view, that you figure out a way to trigger individuals and households to take optimal decisions. That's basically the context. So we draw attention to that. And oh geez. And what we do, well, we identify three segments of the rural economy: the individual, the households, and the community. And we need to understand what financial inclusion does to each of these three groups, so to speak. At the individual levels, there are certain obvious outcomes that we are concerned with. Things related to, if individuals are financially included, if women are financially included, what does it create for households? We need to understand that, and we try to explore the spillover effects of women's financial inclusion on household welfare, in terms of expenditure decisions, in terms of composition of expenditure, in terms of choice of public goods, in terms of coping strategies that households adopt. These are very important. We also look at financial inclusion at the household level. So if households in rural economy, if members of households of rural economy get financially included, what happens at the household level? What happens to asset accumulation at the household level? One of the points that Errol points out is that one of the unintended consequences of financial inclusion might be to increase wealth inequality at the village level. How would it do that? Because if we don't understand that different households are differently abled, they have different competence levels and ability levels. So for the same policy instrument, different households will react differently. And this could have long-term consequences of creating wealth inequalities. One household might be accumulating wealth, the other household might not be able to accumulate wealth. So that's simply, we have to understand that. At the community level, so does financial inclusion trigger economic activity at the community level? We have to explore that, and if it doesn't trigger economic activity at the community level, then exactly what is it triggering, and what does financial inclusion what is financial inclusion actually supposed to do? So we explore financial inclusion at these three levels, and we our program of work is the analysis of these three segments of the rural population, and we use detailed data sets. Much of the work is dependent on large scale household surveys and experiments. The data, we have two sources of data. One is the Rural Economic and Demography Survey that was done at NCAR. When I was at NCAR, we used the 2006 round, and it has a remarkable diversity of information on financial inclusion and financial assets. And it is a panel. It's not really a panel of households, it's a panel of villages. So we kind of understand what has financial inclusion done to the development of these villages. You can track the villages all the way back to 82, and in some cases back to 69, prior to Green Revolution. So we kind of understand we are able to understand the percolation of this technology, so to speak, onto the community level, with great level of clarity, and also at the household level. We also have the socio-economic profile of rural India, which is a kind of a follow-up on REDS. It's a kind of a limited follow-up. REDS we did for 17 states in CEPRI. It covers 14 states, and in a limited way, we are able to articulate what financial inclusion has done to household coping mechanisms, the use of financial technology to a greater extent. REDS does not talk about financial technology to such a great degree, but CEPRI does. And we have disaggregated data at the household and at the member level. It's a fairly detailed data set. And finally, we are going to launch sometime in January a new round of survey, primarily in Uttar Pradesh, across 30 villages in UP, And these 30 villages belong to the REDS data set, REDS panel. So these 30 villages can actually track back to 69. It's a massively rich village level panel that we can create, and the digital financial inclusion survey that we are going to launch in UP essentially will help us understand to a greater degree the spread of digital products in the rural economy, how they are used, why they are getting used, and if they use it, what happens to these households, which probably is far more important than even asking whether they are using it or not, right? Because we start there, then we can know what kind of products are needed and how they need to be designed. Yeah? A significantly important component of our work are these experiments that we are doing. You see, if we use survey data, then it is all ex ante information. I mean, this is information that has happened already. I mean, this event has occurred already. So we really have no clue of asking questions about design, for example. If we change the design of a product or a policy, what would happen to the households? How would they react? Yeah. So for that, we need to do these kinds of field experiments, which is basically what we are also doing in a significant way. Well, what we hope to achieve, in a limited way, if we can highlight the fact that there is a general equilibrium story here, right? What do I mean by general equilibrium story? So it is very important for policymakers to understand that their policy is interacting with some other policy on technology and technology adoption. So a simple example, I did a survey across 60 villages in Vipuram district in Tamil Nadu, and we found that the CSR of Larsen and Toubro had given these rural women training in tablet use, Lenovo tablet use, and as a result, women were accessing information on markets, prices, technology, and so on and so forth. So that interacts with financial inclusion policies. Why? Because women who understand markets and prices wish to cultivate maybe organic spinach, which was actually the case. And the benefits of cultivating organic spinach is going to materialize if you have a bank account. Now, if policymakers do not understand, if policymakers related to financial inclusion, that is spread of bank accounts and so on and so forth, do not fully understand and appreciate the link between one set of policy and another set of policy, one set of outcomes and completely seemingly unrelated outcomes, we are going to have a mess. So hopefully by the end of this program of work, we hope that we can sensitize the various stakeholders, policymakers, fintech entrepreneurs, and just about everybody else, including academics, if you will, about the need to look at financial inclusion in this kind of a general equilibrium framework. Finally, collaborations. So I don't know what to say. I mean, whatever I say will be understated. So let me begin with Vivek. He is instrumental in implementing these field experiments, and we have been. So he is one of the collaborators for us, and is doing these experiments, and that's something that's got to be significantly appreciated and understood what that means. And without CIE, nothing would have happened. So my hats off. I don't know where Priyanka is. Priyanka, Supriya. So nothing would have happened. So what can I say? Maybe I will repeat it in some other forum. IMA, so the backing of Errol and earlier the dean, and the help that was given to push this program of work forward, enabling us to get the work done, greatly appreciated, and Gates Foundation for funding this program of work. it's very hard to find funding agencies. If you have an idea and you try selling your idea to different funding agencies, it's a extremely hard task. And Gates Foundation happened to be one of the most egalitarian institutions who understand the value of high quality work. So we are collaborating, but more than institutions, I again will come back to individuals. My colleague Vivek from IRMA, Abhiman here at IMA, well, right now anybody who I refer to will be a youngster. Anirudh, who is not able to participate, he is tested positive, and Abhishek, who is the future light of financial inclusion in India, he is a PhD student. So they are helping and aiding and abetting in the program of work. Thank you very much.